We will now welcome our second speaker, Mr. Emanuele Lizzi, the lead designer at Neuralab. Mr. Lizzi will tell us more about how to create accessible content, increase engagement, attract a wider audience, and ultimately achieve greater success for your business or organization. Mr. Lizzi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, I will start then. I will talk about accessibility today. I have already a good intro, then I will not talk about it. Then I will start with what is accessibility. Accessibility is the practice to make things useful for a much wider population, for everybody in the end. This is our goal. And when we think about things, I think about furniture, but also I think about digital content, what we are going to focus today. So if we take account that we want to have how much people we want, is possible, then this is like we need to take into consideration 50% of the world population that has some kind of disability. This is about 1 billion people in the world, and it's like 1 every 5 Europeans, and it's just to get how much people it has its disabilities. But this is not talking about just permanent disability, but it's also about temporary and situational disability. What means? For example, when it's temporary, it's something like you have an injury, then it's for some time you cannot have the ability to do something. Or situational, for example, when you are driving, then also in this situation you cannot do some task. This is then something that it's for everybody. Everybody can be disabled. Also, if we think that our life expectations is like over 70 years old, then everybody we will have around 8 years with disability, or in the future or during their life. Then we need to take account about this in our products. Then what impacts the implementation of accessible content? First of all, the user experience. Because like we said, now we are making our content not only for people that can see it, but also for everybody. And if we improve for everybody, then it means it will be simpler, and then it will be easier for everybody to consume your content. Also, this is favorites. If you put accessibility, it will help assistive technology like software, hardwares, to read to work properly. Then they will work how they're supposed to work. For example, software can be like a voiceover or a Zoom that it can zoom everything that you see on the web, but also it can be hardware like a Braille keyboard, that will work properly. SEO, this is more about web, of course, but this is something that it's probably important anyway, because probably you need to communicate your products if you're doing something or your communication. But SEO is a search engine optimization. I didn't write it right away. This is not accessible. It's an error. Okay, and this is also will improve. Basically, we are creating more structured content. Then it will improve also the search engine rankings of your content. It's an ethical responsibility, of course, because now we are talking about inclusion, and we want to include everybody. And also increase the market reach, because like I said before, we have like 1 billion people that we can now reach with accessibility. It's a legal compliance, yes, because web accessibility is required by law in some cases. For example, also in Croatia right now, public institutions must have accessible content. So making how we are going to make the content accessible, we have some guidelines that are made by the World Wide Web Consortium. Then they make practically guidelines, reports. They make things to help to create accessible content. This is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And if you go in their website, you will find all the information that you need. Also, they have a special, like specific standards just for LMS, Learning Management Systems. Then, because it did take account not only the student, but also who is creating the content, and also that their site must be accessible. What to consider while creating accessible content? Provide informative and unique page titles. This is the first thing, is the page title. Then you need to provide something that is useful, that is understandable, and also if you take it outside of context, it will work. For example, this is a title for the home page on the website. If you just call it home, it will not say nothing if you take it outside of context, but if you put the name of the company, then probably it will work much better. Use headings to convey meaning and structure. This is probably basic, but it's something to say. Practically, you need to make your content smaller chunks in more smaller sections and subsections. And when you write a heading, this must have some meaning, because you can think that you can just scroll to the content and just by headings you understand what it will be inside. Make text link text meaningful. This means when you put some links, don't just put like click here, because people will not understand what happens. We always think about what will happen when you click on it, and then explain what will happen in the next phase by clicking like this one about device independence. Then you know that you are going to know more about that. Write meaningful text alternatives for images. This, first of all, write them, because a lot of people just don't write alternative text. This is very bad, because then if you don't have text, we don't know what is inside the image. Now, of course, there are artificial intelligence that can do that, but this is just help for you to create the alternative text, because probably sometimes you will not write exactly what you want to describe with that image. Keep the content clear and concise. This is also, I think, this is something that you already do, because we also here we want to have to reach much people as possible. Then write in short, clear sentences. Avoid using unnecessary complex words, because we never know the background of our users. Then we need to try to explain to everybody. Expand acronyms in first use. This is what I did wrong before. I put SEO, but if somebody doesn't know what it means, then it's not accessible. Because acronyms is always a tricky thing, because they can mean different things, depends on the context. Consider providing glossary. This is also for education. I think this is normal things to do, but it's something that is also important to consider. Use different media to help clarify meaning. For example, if now you need to explain some concept just with text, it can be difficult to understand. Then provide also some infographic or a video, a small video that can explain what you want to communicate. This also is not just about to explain one part of your content, but also can be that you can provide the same content in different ways. You can have a text, you can have an audio, you can have a video for the same content. Then you also here you can reach much more people, and they can reach based on what they want, how they want to consume your content. If you make video and audio, then also create transcripts and captions. This is also now very easy to do, because you can generate them automatically. But of course, you need to check it always, because probably sometimes it can just be something that you don't want that it will be in that way. Provide a sufficient contrast between text and background. This is more like a design topic, but it's very important because it's a common thing that is happening, that is not enough contrast, just because design, we want to make it maybe cool, but in the end it's not useful. Choose the right font. The same thing here, we can try to avoid fancy fonts that are not very readable for everybody. For example, if you choose some serif font, it will be much more easier to read than something fancy like this. And also there's this like dyslexic fonts that are made just for dyslexic people, but this is something that you make like an option for them to activate, because they are not so good to read right away for everybody. Keyboard navigation is another thing that is good. Always make sure that your application can work with keyboard, because we cannot expect that everybody use mouse all the time. And also the assistant technology, it's relied to this. Accessibility widget. This is like an additional that you can add to your application. This also can be AI powered. then you don't need to do nothing about it. But this can provide, then the user can decide what he wants to change in the interface. And this is very, very useful, for example, like we said before about dyslexia. Then we can have the option just to activate the different font or contrast and so on. And now about some numbers. Oh, 5 minutes. Too fast, I went. I'm already done. Some numbers. This is like a report of 1 million home pages. They are taking in account what is the common failures of these web pages. The first one, like we saw before, is the low contrast text. Then people, like it's 80% more, that don't have enough contrast between background and text. The second one, nearly 60%, is missing alternative text. This is what we talked before. This is about images. And we have images without text. Then if you have also, for example, low internet connection, you cannot see the image. You also will not see what was supposed to be inside the image. Empty links, this is like 50%. Empty links are like links that don't have text. Then if like readers will see it, see there's a link, but they don't know what happens, what is inside the link. Missing form labels, this is same thing. You have a form, but you cannot see what you need to put inside every form because it's not written. Empty buttons is like simple, similar to links. A missing document language, this is like, you don't put code inside that explains which language need to read the content. Then also you cannot know, the technology cannot know exactly which language need to provide your content that you're reading. So in the end, accessibility is good for people and businesses because in the end we want more inclusive world, and then the thing is this is the future. And also I think it will be more and more a standard for every web pages or content. Thank you.